Architect Madura Premathilaka is a product of the University of Madura and has experience both here and abroad. He has many design awards under his belt, and he has a lively team of architects titled Team Architrave. And he is also well loved and endeared by our students because his design critiques are usually gentle but very constructive and supportive. So for today, his presentation is on a very suspense-inducing one-liner, great design, small budget. It's my pleasure to invite architect Madura Premathilaka to the stage.
How many of you are architects or architectural students? So how many of you are non-architects? Okay, right. There are some who are not architects and not non-architects. It's like ambagasakut noe because I am really talking to people who are not architects. So if the architects are bored, they can leave now. Or how to achieve your dream house within your budget, or architects can design within your budget, which is really something that people don't believe really, if you let them. There is a rather big misunderstanding about what architects do. They are believed to be people who will beautify, who will give you some quirky thing which you can't use really, but which puts you on the map in your neighborhood or something like that. And this is a common belief that architect designed houses are more expensive, or you can only hire an architect if you have pots of money. Let's see if we can disprove that. Design, the process of design begins before design. There's a huge misunderstanding of the notion of design, starting with the Sinhala translation of the word. The correct translation would be Nirmane, but the National Design Council is, the National Design Center is called Jatika Mostara Madhyasthani. So, Mostara and Nirmane are two completely different things. We are not Mostarakaru. We hope we are Nirmanakaru. Design begins before design because the biggest challenge that an architect has is to understand what you want, to interpret the kind of place you would want, not only you, but your family, your children, your parents, and to envisage what your next generation would want. Because the brief, the list of things that you want in your house, that is what the architect designs first. And that is more important really than the brick and the mortar and the roof and all of that. So the questions that the architect will be asking are, because most clients come to us and give a long list of spaces, and they end up with a huge house which is totally unaffordable and completely irrelevant to their lifestyle. So the questions we will ask are, do you really need all this space? Do you need a different room for eating and sitting and watching TV and reading and so forth? Can you do different things at different times in the same space? Can you do different things with the same space at different times in your family's life? Like when your kids are small, or when they are older, or when they leave home. And then the question which I tend to ask always, what will you do with this huge house when your kids leave home? You have the emptiness syndrome. You have a fancy emptiness syndrome. So the approach that we bring to this question is, can you make really, really small rooms which feel more spacious, which feel much more spacious than the dimension attributed to it? Can you have the quality of life? Most people come to an architect because they're aspiring to a particular quality of life. Can you have the same quality of life in a small house, or at least a smaller house? Can you build on less land? The legal minimum for building in Sri Lanka is 6 perches. Most people think that 6 perches is really not enough. I think that 6 perches is more than enough. And I will show you. If you build on 6 perches, can you have more garden? And how can you design so that you include light and air? Because really, the design of buildings is not about walls and roofs and staircases and things. It's about how you bring the light in, how you get the wind to blow through. How do you do those things? That's what we are supposed to be able to do. So we are designing, we are not Mostarkara. I'll start with a very small house. It is on 6 perches of land. The length and breadth of the house is 25 feet by 25 feet, which means each floor is 625 square feet. The total floor area of the house, because some are half floors, is 2,250 square feet. In addition, there is 750 square feet of decks, balconies, terraces, etc. So, but that's a large proportion. 1/3 of the covered space of the house are decks, verandas, terraces, things like that. Because that's what makes the 2,250 square feet more spacious, more livable, more connected to the outside, more enjoyable. And the spaces are really, really tight. Every room is 9 feet wide. 9 feet is from here to here. That's all. But I'll show you how 9 feet looks when you connect it to the outside. But the height of the building is more than usual. A usual floor-to-floor height in a building is something between 9 to 10 feet. This one has 11 feet. And some floors are double height, which means it has 22 feet. So what you give up in floor area, you gain in height. Because when you buy land, you're not paying for the air, you're only paying for the ground. So this is a house which is 25 feet by 25 feet. It's on 4 floors. And it's built on 4 floors and it has a lift. Now, you might think that a lift is an extravagance for a house. I think it's an essential thing if you live on so many floors. Because I'll give you my justification. 1, modern lifts consume very little energy. 2, we are all growing old and we can't continue to live in houses on multiple levels as we grow old. 3, land prices are so high that the cost of the lift is less than the cost of 1 perch of land. So if you buy 1 perch less, you can afford the lift. So, another question, can you build with trees? Can you build with big trees around? We live in a tropical paradise, yet we have a fear of building with trees. You can build with trees, you can build very close to trees. Houses can hug trees, and they are the better for it. Can you have the same quality of life in a small house, and how can you design for light and air? I'm trying to answer those questions by saying, look, the inside of the house is extending to the outside, so your 9 feet wide space feels like it's 9 miles wide, because it continues out until as far as the eye can see, because you're connected to a long, long vista. This is what it looks like from inside. And look at the height. The height, which is 22 feet, that's what gives this tiny little 9 feet wide space the feeling of spaciousness. Not only that, it brings in the air, it brings in the light. And it brings in the moon as well. Rooms. Can rooms be just minimally dimensioned and yet feel spacious? They can, by the way you arrange it. And an architect will design every little piece of furniture, every little thing that happens in that room, and he will put it in a place where you don't see it. So when you lie down on this bed, you don't see your shoes or your clothes or your handbag. You see that tree through that window, and that's all. And beyond the tree, you see the sky, and that is what gives you, this is not a romantic notion. This is how you create the vista of space, which gives you the feeling of spaciousness. Another room with the same dimension, completely different room, but the way it opens out to the outside is the same. Light and air, in this country, our climate is such that our temperatures are not that difficult to cope with, but we have very high humidity. So our houses have to be designed, if you want a comfortable space, you want the air to move through. And if you want the air to move through, you need a window on that side, and you need a window on the other side. In this house, the staircase acts as a shaft of air. It brings the air from downstairs. Always hot air moves up. So it acts as a shaft of air. It also acts as a shaft of light. It brings in light from the morning in this instance, from the evening from the other direction, so that there's light bouncing off and natural light in the house throughout the day. All of this is what the architect does by design, by thinking, by positioning the building in relation to sunrise and sunset, by thinking of orientation. It doesn't cost anything extra. And you also create open space in different ways. Here is a roof terrace, which is, again, only 9 feet wide, but it opens out, and you feel a sense of space here, which is much bigger than your 6 perches, because we are borrowing the space from everybody else around. This is not the same building, another building, where another device of making a room feels spacious and to have more garden space. That is to dissolve this barrier between inside and outside. To not have a very strict barrier saying, this is the garden, this is the house. Here we have a garden, and there's a grill which separates the house from the garden, and the grill is in the middle of the garden, so that There is no definite boundary like here is a wall and here is a garden and here is a room. You can dissolve it. You can design with glass. You can design with glass, and in order to feel comfortable, in order to enjoy our tropical greenery, you can cover it with trees. And you can create this tropical glass box. I'm not talking about the glass boxes you see when you go down Gall Road. I'm talking about a glass box which is completely covered by greenery. This is a small house we did in a tsunami village down south, in a village called Kalamati. We did here something which was different. We added 2 verandas, because the veranda is the single most important space in rural life. And in this instance, we added a veranda in front, which is the normal space. We also added a veranda at the back, onto which the kitchen opens on one side and the washrooms on the other side, so that the children can play in this veranda and the mother can keep an eye on them while they are in the kitchen. The men are probably getting drunk on the front veranda. That's the house. So this is 600 square feet. It has 2 rooms, 2 verandas, kitchen, toilet. Can you have the same quality of life in a small house? Can you have more garden? This is a tiny little studio we did for an artist, which is 8 feet wide and 16 feet long. How do you create space in such a tiny space? You bring in the light. We have a roof light which runs the length, a very tiny little roof light. And next thing we will do is we will hang cloth banners there which will control the amount of light that comes in, so that the artist can have the amount of light he needs to work in his studio. So, and then, because the end is open, the doors open out, this little space feels spacious. This little space feels well lit. That's Pala Potuputiya in his studio. So, question, can you produce great design on a small budget? You ask the questions. Thank you.